Today, however, we take a look, we look away from all of this, those hot topics, that disturb us a bit, to focus on something very critical, and that is parenting in the 21st century. You will also agree that a lot is going wrong and has gone wrong in that sector.
Oh yeah, certainly. A lot has gone wrong. In fact, when the recent case of Chidinma, right, the 21-year-old girl who's been accused of stabbing her, call him lover, to death, when it hit the news, many were serious, curious, about her home, her parents, and how did this young girl get mixed up in all of this. Well, our guest today will be discussing this extensively after the break. So stay with us.
With John and Helen on PlusTvAfrica, and we dare say to you that despite all that's happening around you, look on the brighter side of life. There's so many good things happening, and we hope that this show is one of those things. Now, raising a child in the 21st century requires a lot of wisdom and communication. But now, how do we ensure that there is a balance? Our guest, BC Ibitayo, is propelled by a firm belief that there is more to everybody's life than where or who they are presently. Now, she therefore sets out to challenge the mindset of youths and adults alike and assist them in attaining the level of excellence ordained for them. Our guest holds a certificate in leadership principles from Harvard Business School and a master's degree in adult education administration from University of Lagos. She has worked in the school system for 24 years, rising from the post of a school teacher, a class teacher, to head of school. She is a certified relationship counselor, and she has a lot to share with us on how parenting in the 20th century should be.
So let's welcome our guests.
Yes. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
Good morning, Helen, and good morning, John. Thank you for having me on today. I'm so excited to be here with you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a very sensitive matter that we have on the front burner this morning. You will agree. Apart from the Chidinma episode, there's been several like that. There are boys who have been seen or reported in the last months, having taken ladies to some hideouts and probably snugged life out of them. So much is happening, and we're beginning to wonder, where did we go wrong as parents? Now, the first question I'd like to pose to you is, we're looking at parenting in the 21st century. What is it that is peculiar and different? And probably what are the demands and the attributes, and the characteristics of the 21st century that makes us to say specific needs and specific requirements need to be put in place for us to be able to parent our children appropriately at this point in time?
Okay, thank you very much here. And I'd just like to say up first, going from what you said about the Chidinma that you made reference to, and all the other boys and things happening around. I'd like to say this, and I say it with all humility and sincerity of heart, that there's nobody who sets out to be a bad parent. We just need to establish that. Nobody sets out to be a parent of a child who murders a man, or a parent of a child who goes into drug. Nobody wakes up and the child is put in your arms on the first day of birth and you say to yourself, I'm going to be a bad parent. What happens? Life happens. Some things happen and it just doesn't work out more anyway. So we're talking 21st century. Please, can I say this? Parents aren't necessarily biological people who birth their children. Anyone who acts in the place of a parent in the life of a child is a parent as well. So teachers in school, teachers in your houses of faith, in your places of worship, your neighbors, everybody and anybody is a parent to a child. I'll come to that when I talk about the things that need to be in place for you to be a good parent. What's different about the 21st century is the digital age. I'm sure you both would agree with me, as would other listeners as well. It's an age where our children have everything on their palms. They don't need to go out of the house to do certain things. You know, in those days when we were growing up, you needed to be out of the house to have relationships with your friends. You needed to be out of home a lot of times to get into some form of mischief. But now they can get into all sorts because everything is right there. The world is in their hands, if I can put it that way. So they have the world in their hands. And so when we think of that, obviously, the way we parent changes. I mean, when you have a child who doesn't necessarily have to go out of home to dupe someone, doesn't need to go to the cinema to watch pornographic movies, doesn't need to, it's just so, the world is in their hands. And so we can't say the way it worked with us or the way our parents did it is the way you would need to do it with this ones necessarily. So that's what I would say about the difference here now.
That's interesting. And I mean, you've touched on some very key points, like, you've made reference to in those days, these days,
when it was the real world.
Yeah, when
and
it was
now
the
that
real,
the virtual world
yeah,
is
but you see, I also think it's relative, the dangers or whatever, the exposure that we had in those days to the exposure that they have now. Well, anyway, I also believe that our parents never had a workbook for parenting. Yet they seem to have done a better job than we are doing now. What is it about the old school parenting that makes it more attractive or better than the modern day parenting?
Can I say here, John? I don't know how old you are, but for those of us who were born in the 60s, the mid-60s, and I want to believe you probably fall into that category without
earlier than that.
Okay, fine, fantastic. But can I ask you really honestly, John?
Yes.
Is it everyone who was brought up the way you were brought up that turned out well?
No.
So that's it.
Certainly.
So I just needed to establish that a lot of times it's not so much as the way they did in the old or the way that is being done now. I think basically everything about life is finding a balance. It's finding what works for you. You see, I am careful when I listen to professionals, so to speak, come up and profess solutions or give you principles and they list it out. Yes, fine, great. But you know what? What works for you might just not work for my children. And so it's essential that every person, every parent must take time to study their children. You must study who your child is and have an understanding of what's going to work for your child. Even children born by the same parents, right? It is often, you would discover, I'm sure you would agree with me to a large extent, that the kind of punishment, the kind of discipline, not punishment now, the kind of discipline you would bring for this person might just not work for the other person. I mean, I grew up in the mid-60s. I was born in the mid-60s. And my father's parenting style, like it was with a lot of them, was the authoritative style. I mean, the kind of style that says, this is the way I want it, and that's the way it's going to be. I mean, you do anything, and then you turn your back, you're smart. I didn't like being smart. I didn't like it at all. And so I would always be careful not to do anything that would get me into trouble. But my brother didn't have a problem with that. And all he would say most of the times is, tops, he'll beat me. Do you understand? And so for him, it wasn't working for him. Although we had an authoritative father, we had a father who was authoritarian. That's the word now in his approach and in his style, right? But for me, if my mom said things to me, I would ruminate on what she has said. I would think about it, and those words would haunt me if I can use that word here. Those words would haunt me to a large extent. I'll keep thinking about it, and because I wouldn't want her to speak to me in that way again. So what happens? I'm careful not to do those things that will bring those words back into my life. Yeah. So see, authoritarian father in those days, in that age, but his style was just not the same. It wasn't getting the same effect. On both children. So that's why I said we must be careful here. So I want to say, in the days when we grew up, we had more of authoritarian parents. We had them. I mean, they were the ones who would say to you, that's the way it's going to be. That's what I say, and it has to be that way. They were the ones who determined what courses we had to study in the university. And so you found out at that time that a lot of students in those days were doing jam, and because they didn't get in for medicine, they didn't get in for law, they didn't get in for different things that their parents wanted them to study, pharmacy, and those kind of high-flying courses at that time. They couldn't get into the university, so you had some people writing these exams over and over again. Why? Because their parents were authoritarian in nature, and they wanted it to be their way. Do you understand? And so this style that they had in those days would also filter to many other things. Are you talking discipline? Are you talking emotional relationship? Are you talking bonding? And so that was just the way it was. So like I said, the styles were different. Of course, now you find it's a different ballgame in this age with children this century. It'll be difficult for you to say to your child, go and study this. Because even half the times, the parents are following the trends happening. They're seeing the young boys like those paystack boys making money from IT and doing very well at that. And so they're saying to themselves, why must my son be a medical doctor? Especially in these climes where we have, in this place, Nigeria, where they're not well paid. And so parents tend to be more flexible, if I can use that word. And so there's now a balance that wasn't existing before. I could say that.
Well, very interesting. It's time to take a quick break. We hope that you are getting all the bits and pieces put together from the discussion with our guest and the angle that is exposing us to as we look at parenting in the 21st century. It's Today with John and Helen on Plus TV Africa. We'll take a quick break, but please don't go away. We'll be back before you know it. Stay. Thank you for staying there. Dr. Olabisi Ibitayo is still helping us to understand and unravel what it takes to be a good parent in the 21st century to our younger ones. At this point in time, I was going to look at the relational friction, you know, that seems to be a huge problem. But let's just hold it there and get to the nitty-gritty of this subject matter. Kindly tell us at this point, what are the expectations and the requirements and the qualifications, if I can use that word, of a good parent in the 21st century?
Okay, can I just say this? I don't have a doctorate degree yet, so it's just Olabisi Ibitayo. I just need to correct that. Okay. I just have to correct that.
Thank you.
Like I said about the style, the different styles of parenting. There's the authoritarian, the one who is assertive. There's the authoritative, the one who gives instructions but also listens to the child. There's the one who is not the permissive style, that everything and anything you want to do is fine. What's expected of me as a parent? In this generation, the first thing I like to ask is that it's essential that we're there, our presence. I call them the 5 Ps. That's presence, provision, protection, partnership, and prayer. Presence, what do I mean by this? A lot of times, most people are not there. They're not in the children's lives. We're so, the 9-to-5 job, you work on the island, you live on the mainland in this part of the world, you have to leave home at 5 o'clock. By the time you get back, the children are in bed. School functions happen. I mean, I was ahead of school, and I know the way it used to be. You'd hear, we give out letters to the students, take them home, your parents will come, and we hear children say immediately, I know my mommy won't come. I know my daddy won't come. And so it's a standard for them because their presence is never there. And you go, why do you think he won't come? She's busy, she's at work. She'll say, it's me, it's because of me she's working. And so I believe the presence is essential. Presence at school functions, presence when they do things, presence, visiting days, not handing over your responsibilities to the drivers only, or to the nannies or aunties. And when I'm saying presence, I'm talking both parents here. Sometimes you will find the mothers there and the fathers are busy, and you keep hearing things like, it's just because of the family I have to do this. Presence emotionally too, can I say this? A lot of us are physically there, but we're not emotionally there for our children. We don't know what is going on in their minds. We don't know what they're going through. I mean, we all read the story about that young girl that the mom went to take from school and whatever. And I was saying in my mind, what was this child going through? Could the parents gauge what was happening in the life? Were they really present for her? Can you tell, can you gauge the emotional feelings, the feelings going through your child's mind? When you're not there, it's almost impossible for the child to let you know what's happening. I'll give you a very good example. When my children were in primary school, in secondary school, because of the kind of job I did, I had time, I would want to pick them up from school myself. And sometimes when we're driving home from school, because what has happened in school is still fresh in their minds, you would hear them say things to me, asking me questions. You hear, Mommy, is it okay? Is it good for an adult to do this? And so times like that, or maybe in their conversations with their friends that are with them, around them, I get filters of what's happening in their minds and in their lives. How present are you in the lives of your children?
Yes.
Present there physically to celebrate their achievements. The second thing that is important is provision. This is very important. Provision, being there, being able to provide for them. You know, a lot of people were going on, it's because some children have to fend for themselves. Even when we were growing up in my generation, there were times the parents could not really meet up to provide for the needs. And so you will find in the bid for a lot of these people, children, to want to have certain things. Sometimes it's even the basic things, you'll be shocked. If you have to be careful, I'm a person of faith, but let's be mindful how many children we churn out there. Yes, it's God that provides, but please, can you do the math? Can you be sure that you can sustain what it is you're bringing into the world? If there's nothing more demeaning for an individual when you have to rely or depend on other people for things, provision is very important. And also, I need to say this, protection. How much of the people who come into our children's lives do we know? I mean, like there was an instance of a young boy who had a habit in primary school of lifting up the skirts of the girls in his class. And it was weird. It was weird for a 4-year-old to be doing this. And so this boy was brought to me and we questioned him. And we found out that this boy said to us, and he goes, Mrs. Vitaya, he said, the reason I do this is because that is what Uncle X does to my sister. We were shocked. Uncle X, we knew Uncle X to be the parents' driver. And so we're going, Uncle X does this. He said, yes. He said, when we're coming to school, when he's bringing me to school, he makes my sister sit in the front seat while I go to the back. And he says to me, lie down and close your eyes. He says, but most times I don't. 4-year-olds, you'll be amazed at what they know. But most times I don't close my eyes. And so he watches the driver dip his fingers into his sister's vagina. I use the right word because it's important that we get this. What am I saying? Protection. Yes, you can't be there to take your children to school all the time. Can you get someone who is there to watch over them? All these people in your house, I go into some homes, I see a lot of male adults. I have issues on my hands. I have young girls, 13, 19-year-old girl, who said to me that she was abused physically, sexually by her mother's sister's husband. That's her uncle. This happened under her parents' roof. Who comes into your home? We can't afford to be careless. We can't afford to just let everybody and anybody come into our home. And then these children, and this girl I'm talking about here, you want to come in or should I hold on a bit?
Yeah,
Should I go on or should I
you said the 5 P's.
Yeah,
You've given us 3 of them.
it's given us 3. Maybe.
Okay, fantastic.
So quickly,
And
the
so we're
rest.
talking here, I'm talking protection here. And this girl calls me in a phone call, a 19-year-old, and says to me, the first time she was sexually abused was when she was 6 by her auntie's husband, who is a pastor. And I decided to use that really so that we would understand. So it's not so much as the toga that the people around our children wear. We must be protective. We must put the things in place. We must put the right things in place. There must be checks to ensure that they are not in wrong hands. The fact that the person is your brother, you don't know who your brother is fraternizing with. You don't know what ideas. A lot of children are into pornography because their uncles or the maids or the drivers. A lot of children are doing drugs because the drivers, the uncles, the people we expose them to are exposing them to greater danger. The next thing I'd like to talk about is partnership. Partnership, and this means collaboration to me. How much partnership do you have with the people who are stakeholders in the lives of your children? I say this because I'm a teacher. Can I say this to you? Sometimes the teachers in school know more about the emotional, the physical well-being of these children more than the parents do, because they spend a lot of hours in school. We are the ones who hear their conversations. We, the teachers, are the ones who hear when the boy is telling his friends how his father beats his mother every day. And then you begin to say to yourself, what is happening here? Partnership. Talk to your children's teachers. Find out about them. I recall the first time I realized that my daughter was afraid of me was from her Sunday school teacher. And for all I knew then, I believed I was a good parent. I was doing what I should. I was being careful what she should do. I was putting the right things in place. But I was getting to be a parent that she held in fair and great. And she walked up to me one day and said to me, can I talk to you for a moment? Mind you, a minister in the church, an ordained minister who preaches from the pulpit. That's who I was at that time and who I still am. And so she said she wants to have a conversation with me. And I'm wondering what she wants to talk about. And she goes, do you know your daughter is really afraid of you? And I go, I'm thinking in my head, afraid of me? Isn't that a good thing? She says, no, afraid of you in a negative way. She says, and if she continues like that, she will not find, if you continue that way, Mrs. Vital, she will not find you approachable and won't be able to have the right conversations with you. How old was my daughter at this time? She was still in the children's church, so she wasn't a teenager yet. I had to recalibrate. And so why am I saying this? Who are the people in the lives of your children? What relationship do you have with the stakeholders? I've had people say to me that they found out their children were doing drugs from their drivers. If you're carrying shoulder for your hired helps, if your mates find you unapproachable, your drivers find you unapproachable, they are the ones who see the kind of people our children walk with. When they find you, will they be able to walk up to you to tell you that this is what I've observed? A woman walked up to me for counseling and said to me her daughter was doing drugs. How did you find out? Her maid told her her daughter was doing drugs. But now, if you are the madam or the oga of the house, and all you do, you're high and lofty, lifted up, far above everybody, how will they be able to tell you what your child is going through?
Okay, the final point.
The final
Let's
P,
get the final
the
P.
fifth P.
Okay, so the final P I would say is prayer.
Okay.
I'm a person of faith. You will need to pray. It's essential we pray. We must pray. We will do our bit, but then God, of course, faith without works is dead. We must pray. We must commit them into the hands of God, asking God to guide them, asking God to guide them and put them in the center of His will for His life. So I'll just stop there and then hear you.
Yeah,
Wow.
Mrs. Ibitayo.
That's a lot for the parents.
Yeah, quite a lot. And it's quite a handful, you know. Now, you've given us 5 Ps, and each one is has its own, you know, its own merit. Mrs. Ibitayo, that's quite a handful for many of us parents.
Yes,
Of course, you know, there must be a bullseye somewhere. The bullseye, in other words, a successful outcome which we seek. And this is increasingly elusive in good parenting these days. Now, all of these things that you've told us, where will we find the bullseye? What is that singular thing that we must be to be good parents?
You see, can I say this, John? It's you put me in a spot when you ask that question, and I'll say this to you. I don't want anybody to run away thinking that once I do this, I've got it covered, because there's no one thing you do that has this covered. You know, I said when I started off that we do our bit, we all come in, we make sacrifices, we do what we should do. At the end of the day, ultimately, we're hopeful and trusting God that it turns out well. What is the bullseye for me might just not be the bullseye for you. And that's really, I'm serious about that here now. And so these principles that I follow are what I do to guide me and what I advise people to guide them as well. And if you now say, narrow it down to that one thing, I believe it's a presence. I could say presence. If you're there with them, when I say presence, not physically only.
Yes.
There's an assurance. The presence I'm talking about here also gives an assurance that even when they do something wrong, they know they could always go back home, and that you will welcome them, even though there are consequences for wrong actions and decisions, but that they always feel like home and parents is some person and people they could always go back to. And so it reduces the counsel, the receive that is negative from out there. And I think that kind of creates a balance, if that's what you mean here.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a word I've been looking for, that balance. And how difficult, how easy is it, to find ourselves in that spot? A lot of this fallout, the evil that we see, if I can use that word, being manifested by our children, we find them now with the internet, they're all over the place. And it doesn't mean that these things haven't been in existence in the past. A lot of these people, Chidima, for example, is 21 years. A lot of these guys are either in their 18s or in their 20s or in their 30 years. And from your last response to our question, you seem to have narrowed down the ages, of these children to 5 years, to 10 years, to 12, to 15 years. Are you saying that, the formative years also have a lot to do with who our children eventually turn out to, especially when you gauge it back to back with the prevailing circumstance? It's so difficult for the parents to be physically or emotionally present. The issues that are affecting the parents are so mammoth. How do we go around this, please?
Can I say this, Helen? It's better to get it right than to repair. It's easier. Anything in life is easier built correctly than having to repair. And so I do agree with you about foundational, getting it right. And one of the things I talk about, can I ask you a question? Can I say this? I ask people questions. I say, what are the values that hold your family? What are the things you believe in? Can I ask your child, your 20-year-old, your 21-year-old, your 30-year-old, can I ask them questions like, what are the values that your parents believe in and they have kind of put in you? What would you say? Just a lot of people don't know. They don't know words like integrity. They don't know words like kindness. They don't know the basic things. They don't know about forgiveness. And so if these values are not there, then what are we building on? Please, I'm not talking the Christian faith alone also. I'm talking everybody in general.
Yeah.
We sit down, we talk about leadership that has gone wrong in the nation. And then you ask yourself, what values did their parents put in them? Which brings me to foundation. So it's essential we get it right. Sometimes what you see in adults is a factor of what was put in them as children. And so they go with that. I'm a marriage counselor. I listen to a lot of marriages that have issues. And you find out that it's a factor of what has been put in them. And so what are we modeling as parents? Let me ask that question also. What do the children see in us? How do they perceive us? What can they say about us? A young boy had a habit of shouting down on people, and he would talk down on them, and it was basically females. And we asked him, why are you always this way? And he said to us, brazenly, looked me eyeball to eyeball. He says, because my dad says a girl must never talk back at you. And I'm saying to myself, that is a monster that is being grown. That is someone who's going to work in a certain corporate environment, and he just won't take instructions from a female. Why? Because his father has told him that. So what are we modeling as parents? I'd like to ask us here.
Yes, I mean,
That was meant to be your next question.
that was meant to be my
Role
question.
modeling,
That
please.
Oh,
How
really?
important it is.
how important is role
Yeah.
modeling
Absolutely
in
important.
today's parenting? And
Definitely
I'm happy you've touched on it, because, quite frankly, it is what the children see that they know.
Yeah.
So
Going deeper into this, does the age of the parents, for example, does it affect the outcome of parenting in this century?
I didn't hear that, Helen. Could you please take that again?
The age of the parent. We're having more parents younger now. We're having younger people, have children. So does the age of the parents affect the outcome of parenting in the 21st century?
Well, I could say, can I say this? I have friends who have grandchildren. Do you know a lot of these young ones who are having children are leaving the parenting to their parents? Why? Because they're busy at work. And so some of them, it's the mother, that's the grandmother or the grandfather, who stays at home to look after these children. Do you get that? Yeah. So sometimes I ask, how ready are you to parent? Parenting is not wassail, it's not child's play. It isn't. A lot of people, many people get married because people want them to get married. The society puts pressure on them. Their parents put pressure on them. A lot of people are not prepared for what we find. Nobody sat me down to teach me on parenting, and I'm sure I can say the same for both of you. Meanwhile, even till today, you will hear places are worship, places of faith. They're concerned about you becoming a multimillionaire in dollar. So you have financial seminars holding. You have marriage seminars holding. You have skill acquisition. How many people, how many faith-based organizations really deal with parenting? Nobody tutors anybody. It's just, is it pay as you go, learn as you go? And so we all make mistakes along the line. The younger ones are wiser because they understand, a lot of them understand that they don't know how to do this. And so they let their parents take control. Can I say this also? Sometimes the way we parent has to do with some things we have suffered in our past.
Okay.
I don't know if I can say that now.
Yep.
yes.
Yes, I'll explain this. I'll find some parents who are very, they allow their children to get away with all sorts. They're permissive. You call it the permissive parenting style. These are people that it's fine whatever they do. They want to go out, let them go. They want to have this, let them go. And then when you listen to them, you hear, when I was younger, I was deprived of this. Hey, can I say this to you, dear parent? The fact that you were deprived of certain things does not mean you have to go overboard in your provision for your children. There has to be a balance. And so you will find people that, when I was younger, my father didn't let me go out much. I want my children to go out much. Where is the balance? Okay. Let's not go overboard in these things. We need to sit down and think. We really need to be careful the way we go. So age, how ready are you? How mature are you? How much? How many people read up on parenting? How many people ask for advice on parenting? Like in our days when we were growing up, everybody had a say in what you had to do. But unfortunately, in this 21st century, we're all fenced around. Yeah. You don't even know who your neighbors are. Nobody has a say. Your grandparents, sometimes you don't even see them. And so how much input do you get? It's from the maids, the hired helps, the drivers, because your parents aren't even there. So maturity is important. A readiness to learn, to know, to ask questions from people who have done it before. And then that way, I think we can increase our pool of knowledge and probably we will do better.
Well done.
So now we need some balancing act here, because we have to live our lives at the same time, look after the children. So there's a lot of balancing that one needs to be able to get right there.
I think also that there's a need for us to be ready. Be ready for this responsibility. Yes. Because
are we ever ready, Helen?
It's a critical.
Are we?
Well, getting ready is, you talked about finding, asking questions, yes. Attending seminars, for example. If you have issues in specific areas, look for where they have answers, and get over it, instead of just covering up in the house and probably expecting miracle to happen, when you have things going wrong here and there. Now, what would be your final words on this very important subject matter? Because the younger ones become the leaders of tomorrow. And if we're beginning to have loads of crises and issues with them today, then the situation that we find ourselves in this country and in the world today that we're all lamenting about would probably be child's play in the future. What would be your final words, please?
Can I say this? And you'll have to pardon me, I'm an apologetic Christian, apologetically Christian. I don't believe it's an accident that we have those children. And like I said when I started off, I don't think anybody sets out to fail. But when we do not put the right things, the right measures in place, we will ultimately fail. Nobody is a custodian of knowledge. Seek counsel, ask questions, ask people. Don't be ashamed. If your child is going through an issue, I have people whose children are doing drugs and all they do is go to church, lay hands. Please, I believe in the efficacy of prayer. But there are people who God has put this wisdom in to deal with. If you need help, specialized help, professional help for your children in any area, don't act as if you know it all because you don't even know a quarter of a thousand of whatever it is you need to know. Get help. Ask the right questions. Don't let the devil thrive in the place of secrecy with your family. Put values in place. Ensure that your children understand what you stand for. You can't say you're a parent and you're teaching your child the right way to behave, how to treat people well, and you come back from church on Sunday, you're gossiping about your pastor. And then the next day your child sees you, your teenage daughter or your 22-year-old son sees you kneeling down and getting up and greeting that same pastor. We put a lot of confusion in their minds. Let's be role models are worthy of emulation. Be concerned about their emotional well-being. Ask them questions. Know their friends. Know their friends and know their friends. Be interested. And then can I say this? Don't let anything they ever tell you shock you. Don't ever act shocked by anything they say. I remember the first day my daughter said to me, they discovered that someone in her school, a girl, a 15-year-old girl or 13 there at that time, was doing marijuana. And she did it in school, she was caught. This is a girl I know that had been to the house. I didn't act shocked because I was careful because if the minute you act shocked, the more dangerous ones, they won't tell you. So I was like, I just kept going, oh dear, poor her. Oh dear, poor her. I didn't want my mouth and say, you're working with that because she can't tell. Sometimes these children can't even tell who they're working with. And this other girl who had this issue definitely didn't want to get to that point. Peer pressure. Probably got her there for some attention or whatever. So please, let's be their friends. Let's be there for them. Let's listen to them. Let's hear them. Let's correct and let's discipline them when we need to. Let's stop acting like they won't die. They won't die. Let's be firm with them. Let them understand what we stand for. And finally, like I said, let's keep praying that they'll turn out well.
Wow.
Thank you so
much.
much.
And I think this discussion is not one that we should have, in one
outing.
In one outing.
True.
As a matter of fact, this is something we need to talk about
almost every day.
Very often, and take it even to, to the schools themselves. Let them watch programs like this, so that people will better understand the intricacies, of good parenting.
It's a huge task.
I really must thank Mrs. Ibitayo
she's done
for
great.
your contribution this morning. Sure. I mean, we've had to ram in so much into this very short time, but I tell you that you've really made an impression on all of us.
And I dare to say I'm going to take away the 5 Ps and try to let other people know. After now, the 5 Ps, very important. I knew about presence, I knew about protection and provision, but the other things that you brought into it, they seemed like the normal, but it's important for us to hang on to those 5 Ps and a few others, to ensure that we raise human beings as children, human beings. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of the program today. We will call upon you again from time to time, and we believe you'll be there for us.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Helen. Thank you. It's been my pleasure being here with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
bye for now.
Right after the fitness segment, which will be
that is available,
which will be coming up soon.
Yes.
Ferron will be sitting with the founder of Lagos Moms, Yeti Williams, on raising Generation Z.
Not Generation X this time, but the Z generation.
Yeah, Z is American, Z is British. I think I'm more British than American.
Okay.
So raising the Generation Z.
We'll be back.
Coming up soon.
After
the break.
Yes.
everyone, and welcome to the fitness section of today's show. Again, my name is Dolly Phillips, and we're at Alpha Fitness Studios in Lekki Phase 1. So as always, we're going to start with a quick warm-up. Deep breath in and out, and in and out. 2 more, in and out. Last one, in and out. Shoulder rolls back for 4, 3, 2, and 1. And forward, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hip circles, let's go. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Other way, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's reach down and up for 4, 3. Very good. 2. Last one. 1. All right, so we're ready to go. We're going to start with a cardio warm-up today, cardio workout today rather, and then we're going to start with jogging on the spot. So we're working for 25 seconds, and we're going to rest for 10 seconds. And your time starts in 3, 2, 1. We're jogging on the spot. Let's go. 1, 2. 10. Now, if your knees are hurting and you can't jog on the spot, just lift those knees up for me. That works for me. A big march. That's it. Coming down to 10 seconds left. Let's go. Woo! 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and time. Very good. Next one, we're going to simple jumping jacks, but we're going to have fun with this one. We're going to do this here and turn to the side. And your time starts now. Let's go. 1. 1, and time. Very good. We're going back to the first workout, the jog on the spot, but now we're going to move laterally. Are you ready? Let's go. Side to side, let's go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Good. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Keep moving. Again, if you can't jump, same workout. All right? I can jump, so I'm going. 5 more seconds. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Last 3, 2, 1, and time. Now, moving on to another workout. We're going to raise those knees up and touch our toes. In 3, 2, 1, let's do it. Knee and toes. Knee, toes. Come on. Knees, toes. Now, don't lean back. You want to push forward so you can reach those toes. We're working those abs here. All right? And time. Now, we're going to do 2 jumps and 1 squat. That's what we're doing. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. 2 jumps, 1 squat. 2 jumps, 1 squat. Now, when you do your squat, make sure you push your bum back. That's it. Have fun with this one. If you can't jump, just up and down. Up and down. But if you can, come on. Let's add that jump. It makes it fun. 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, and time. Let's do that one more time. And then we'll do our stretch and we're done for today's workout. 1 knee, 1 foot. Let's go. 1, 2. Breathe out. You always want to get yourself into a rhythmic pattern with your breathing when you're working out. That way, you have endurance. And rest it. 2 jumps, 1 squat. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Big smile on your face. It makes it so much easier. Last one. Time. Super job, everyone. Coming down to our last workout, our jump squats. Get ready, and your time starts now. Let's go. 2 jumps, 1 squat. Very good. Jump and squat. Awesome. Jump and squat. Now, if you can't jump, remember, just squat. Jump and squat. Good. Jump and squat. I can. So I'm going to keep jumping. Very good. You have 10 seconds left. Let's go. Come on. 5, 4, 3, 2, and time. Wow. Well done, everybody. Well done. Today's workout wasn't so tough, but it got our hearts going. So now we're done. We're going to do a cool down stretch. Deep breath in and out. One more and out. Hands on your hips. Reach out to the side. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Other side. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good job. Push that pelvis forward. Lean back. Oh, this feels so good. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now push your hands forward. Flat back. Push that bum back. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Quad stretch. Hold on to something if you don't have your balance. It's fine. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hamstring stretch. Heel down. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Other side. Let's go. 4, 3, 2, 1. And hamstring down. 45 degrees. Touch. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Last deep breath in. Come on. And out through the mouth. One more. And out. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me. And I hope to see you very soon. Bye-bye. Thank you, John and Helen. So we're talking parenting in today's world, which invariably means raising children in their mid-20s all the way down to toddlers, who in demographic terms are referred to as Generation Z and Alpha Generation, respectively. And with me today is Yeti Williams, parenting coach and founder of Lagos Moms, the first Nigerian blogs dedicated to mums. Yeti is also a social entrepreneur with over 20 years experience which spans financial services and real estate consulting. Welcome, Yeti.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
So, I've heard a lot about Lagos Moms. I've heard a lot about everything that you guys do. So it really, really is an honor for me to be able to interview you today. And I will jump right in. My first question would be, why does it seem like Generation Z and Alpha Generation are very different from the older generation?
That's a great question and a good place to start. And I think what it is, you know, children are always going to face different things. And every generation has something unique to them. Generation Z, Alpha Generation, why it seems like they're so different is the fact that they're being raised by parents who have no idea what a digital childhood is. So that's one of the biggest causes of a lot of the tension is generation in, generation out. Generally, parents are able to raise their children off a script. The scripting that they were also raised with. There'll be some modifications, but largely that's a common denominator. But now, I use this phrase a lot, and I say we're probably the last set of parents who have one leg in the analog world and one leg in the digital world.
We being people of what age
today.
bracket?
So parents today who are raising Gen Z.
Okay.
Who are raising Gen Z and younger.
Okay.
You know, because if you look at it, something like Instagram, how old is it? It's about 10 years old.
Yes.
So if you use that as a context, right?
Yes.
A lot of parents today, you were definitely not a child when Instagram was out there. You learnt about it as you got older.
Yes.
So parents today raising Gen Z and younger are parents who remember probably a little bit of some of your childhood that wasn't digital, wasn't fully digital. But you're raising children who are digital natives. We are the aliens, or depending on where you fall, you're either a digital alien that has no clue about the digital world, or you're a digital migrant, which means you've learnt about the digital world. So you've grown up, or you've started your career, or today you're working, and you can't afford to say you can't email, you don't know how to use a computer. Some things you had to learn when you got older. But for the children, they are born into a digital world from day one, and that's why you give a 2-year-old a device and you'll be amazed how they operate it. But you're thinking, nobody taught this child how to turn it on. So it's a very different dispensation, and that's one of the biggest things that parents need to realize causes the tension. When you get that big difference, it kind of reduces the tension. It's no more good or bad, either or. It is and. It is how do we figure out raising children in a digital world, and we are constantly learning along with them.
So how do you then balance it? Because digital is not all good.
Right. It's not all good and it's not all bad.
Okay.
And that's why I say that's the basis. It's to just say, okay, what is so different? It's really because it's a digital world. Your children don't know a pre-digital world. So when you say things like, in my days, I used to run outside. I used to
make sand cakes.
They can't relate. Sand cakes. You didn't have anything else to do. You didn't have a YouTube video to watch. You didn't have Fortnite to play. You were doing sand cakes. So for a lot of them, they cannot understand where you're coming from. So when you say, what's the balance? The truth is, I will be the last person to say digital is all bad. I've built my business 100% using digital
digital
tools.
has a lot of good
Has a lot of benefits, but the question really is the balance. And that's where a modern parent, an intentional parent today, must get that balance right. So that's what we need to delve a lot into. What does it look like? How do you determine when it's too much? What are the things to look out for in your child to identify that the way they're consuming content online is hurting them, or is it harming them?
So how do you then get that balance right?
So that balance right starts from your family digital well-being plan, which I say every family should have. What's your family's digital well-being plan? That means, really quickly, you have children at different ages, between 0 and 10, 10 to 15, 16 and older. How long are they spending online? Children below 2 really don't have any business with screen time. And this is based off research and I think it's the American Pediatric Association says that children 2 and younger shouldn't have any screen time. Most parents are like, what? They believe that they need to develop during those years. So they learn better, they learn language, they learn by having somebody communicate with them. But when a child is stuck passively consuming content, they're not learning as many words, they're not learning to read body language, they're not hearing their parents talk to them as much. It's all a computerized system talking to them. So parents think the children are learning, but actually it's very passive consumption.
What of TV? Because that is screen time as well.
It's screen time, not that much. Shouldn't really have TV. Let them play with their hands, toys, play outside, take in nature. They are still learning. Their brains are just developing. So you pluck them in front of a device and they're just like this. They're not learning that much. They're not learning that much. Now, as they get older, of course, you can. So screen time for that age is useful, or it's good for them if, for example, it's screen time with somebody that they're talking to. So video communication.
Right.
Where they're talking to grandma or an auntie and uncle who's conversing with them. That is still communication. Right. But it's that passive consumption that's dangerous.
Right.
And a lot of children, when they get on YouTube, what happens? For example, the next video just comes, and it just comes, and it just comes. So it's very passive. However, a child who's engaging with the content is very different, which is why part of your family digital plan should include mom and dad watching and consuming content online with your children. That's where the communication comes in. Why do you like this? What do you like about this channel? Why is this your favorite YouTuber? A lot of children have favorite YouTubers. Wow. Who is your favorite? Why do you like this content? All right, let me play your video game with you. So the children are living in a digital world, but it's important for us to insert ourselves into that world.
That's where the intentionality comes into it. That's where the intentionality comes in. It's not about shouting, you're always on this thing. You're always, that doesn't, it's like, I found an example the other day I used for someone and they laughed. I said, imagine you go to a Nigerian birthday party and they don't serve you small chops. You're going to be like, this party is not complete. What's going on? It's the same way for a digital child today. They cannot understand the fuss about not going online. That's their default. So it's for us to help them to understand the balance. So back to balance question. What is too much? Screen time needs to be managed. Okay. Children 24 months and older can get online, but you need to make sure that you have parental software in place. You are making them get off at particular times. If they've been on for, let's say, 30 minutes, let them do something else for 10 or 20 minutes, and they can get back on. A child shouldn't spend 5 to 10 hours on screens all day. There are other things to do. They need to move. So let me now take this to the Nigerian context, where most parents are working morning till night. A lot of children are being cared for primarily by various caregivers, nannies, grandmas, domestic help, how do these parents who must work, how do they find this balance? Because what you're talking about seems very hands-on.
Right. So the hands-on nature doesn't only have to be with the parent. It can be with whoever the caregiver is.
But the caregiver may not be literate enough to do these things.
Right. So whose job is that? Whose decision is that? It's the parents,
parents.
right? So you have to determine who you're bringing into your house to care for your children. It's really that simple. So if you know you cannot get domestic staff that can do what you want to do, who can raise your children, who are literate enough to follow simple rules and guidelines, because you can't put the rules in place. It's back to that intentionality. You don't want screens to be the babysitter of your child 24/7. It's just not healthy. There are other things to do. So you can put a schedule in place. Yeah, you might be at work, we know that. But we need to be very careful not to use being at work as a crutch or an excuse to not doing a lot of the other things that your children need. Your children are not going to get, when they get older, they're not going to go back and say, you know, well, you can't really redo parenting. You can't redo it. So you have to put those rules in place. If it's grandma has to understand where you're coming from. Why are you seeking balance? Why is there a screen time limit? Right? If it's 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day, what are the other things your child should do when they're not online? There's playing outside, there's reading books.
I hear you, but what about grandma who, like you said, is not even the generation where digital migrants. Yeah, grandma is digital non-existence.
Alien, yes.
You know, and grandma is the one who's helping to raise your child, and grandma's understanding is if your child is naughty, you get spanked. You know, so how do you then get grandma to do that shift?
From what to what?
From the way they know, which is the way they were raised and the way they raised the parents of that child, to this way you're recommending, which has digital at the center of it.
Right. So everybody, you know, the same grandparents who didn't grow up with digitals, they are WhatsApp warriors. Right? We can
Very
all
true.
agree
Very
that
true.
grandma and grandpa, they can send WhatsApp for days. So even they learned that. Right?
True.
They learned how to use WhatsApp and all these smart devices. Right. So it's the same thing. It's back to intentionality. What do you want? So you sit down with grandma and grandpa in a very nice way. If they're the ones caring for your children, listen, oh, we don't want Bode to be on screen all the time. Why? Well, there's some bad things online. Screen time is actually addictive. If a child is constantly online, they're not learning as well as they could. They need to go outside. They need to play. They need to read books. They need to touch toys. There's a lot that we want our children to do in addition to screen time. And then you start to see, so when we talk about support system, that's part of it. If it's a nanny in the house, I've had fantastic nannies throughout raising the children, but they understood what we were looking for in the house and they had to fit into that schedule. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing with food. You're not going to have you shouldn't have your nanny give your children Indomie morning, noon and night, or noodles morning, noon and night, right? You shouldn't. So you should have a timetable. 5 servings of vegetables, how are they going to get it in? So it's about being intentional. So digital is just yet another facet of that intentionality. So whoever is raising your child, whoever is involved in raising your child needs to understand where you are coming from.
I see. So, okay. So this Generation Z children and some people in Generation Alpha, they seem to speak a very different language. You know, they behave very differently. They seem to have very different sets of values and beliefs to those of their parents. Why is this?
The children are just responding to society.
How do you mean?
So when you say that their set of values are different, they're responding to what society has brought to them as normal. So
I see.
You know what I mean? So a lot of things, what we call culture, what we call values, what we call belief systems, societal pressure, all of that, it comes from a set of people.
True.
And it's those set of people that evolve. So when your child is born and comes home from the hospital, he or she is a blank sheet of paper. They're a sponge to soak in whatever is being served to them. Then you have to look at your environment and say, where are they picking things up from? Which is part of where digital is such a big aspect. Because if your child spends a lot of time on screen time, you're not raising a Nigerian. You're raising a child who knows what's going on in the US, whose mannerisms might be British, right? Whose preference might be lasagna and pizza and not moi moi. So your children are exposed to the whole world. So you have to be, I keep saying you cannot afford to be a permissive parent today because there's so much influence coming consistently that's going to drown out whatever you think your values are as a family if you don't spend the time having real deep quality communication with your children. So they're picking things up from everywhere. So it's not that their values are different, it's that the values of the society are different. And that's what's affecting the children, because they're picking it up. If everybody's always dragging on social media, you know, we're always celebrating, you hammer at all costs, it doesn't matter how. If that's what they see, then okay, this must be how we operate. This must be what everybody celebrates, is that you just have the finest, most beautiful, biggest house. It doesn't matter what you really did to get it.
I see. I see. That you know, that makes absolute sense. Really does. But here's one of the things that I find so awe-inspiring about Generation Z. They are generally very confident risk takers. They can start a new business every day of the week, and they seem to thrive in those businesses. Whereas my generation, for example, I think my generation is the MTV generation. Okay. We generally are a bit more cautious, you know, and the older the generations get, the more cautious they are.
Right.
You know, they think things through a lot more. But this generation, they want it, they go for it. It's like they have no fear of failure, you know. How did they get to be that way?
A lot of it is honestly the fact that they have examples to look at. Think about it today. If you want to start a business today, if you wanted to start a business in the next hour, we could. Building a website is straightforward, for free.
True.
Getting payments, easy. So there's a lot of things now that are faster. And that's the digital age that we're in. Everything is fast, everything is quick, everything is now, which is why even children, depending on where you live, you will order. You expect Amazon to deliver in 24 hours. You know, you order here, they're like 14 days. Why? You know, so everything has changed. Before, you wait for one person that's traveling. You're traveling. Please let me quickly go through Argos and write down the list of things I want. Then wait for the person to go. It's so different.
Or even telephone.
Or telephone. I remember telephone, you had to wait for dial tone. And if you finally got it, you're like, yeah, you now call, then it's engaged. You're like, oh my God. Now it's a touch of a button. So that same speed is part of what's making number one our children and young adults. They're very bold. Failure is feedback. Failure is feedback. They're like, yeah, I'll try it. And if it doesn't work, okay. And they've seen tech companies. They've seen industries come out of nowhere. They've seen people who've started, you know, who've become unicorns from starting one business doing A, B, C, or D. And suddenly they've gotten investments. So the feedback loop now is much faster. And the average young person today doesn't believe that they cannot.
Wow.
They don't really believe they cannot. And especially if they've had the right enabling environment at home that says you can do it. You know what? What's the worst? Like I tell my children, there's nothing like failure. It is feedback. But when you get that feedback, what do you do with it? Because when you junk in, junk out, so you can get data, but how you use it and process it makes all the difference in terms of what you do next.
Wow.
So I think that's how we have a very bold generation. They want to do something now. They can. And they've also seen the old model doesn't work. Right? Not a lot of people now stay in one job that they're working for 20 or 30 years, then they retire, and your pension is enough.
Wow.
They've also seen that model does not work.
Wow. And that is true. And in today's Nigeria, usually that pension doesn't even
go anywhere.
It doesn't help you at all. Wow. Okay, so I now want to take this back to something that's been making the rounds in the news. I don't know if you've heard of, you read the story of the young university lady who killed the CEO of Super TV. And her dad was in denial. Initially, when they came to arrest her, he said, can't be my child. You know, and the people who have actually spoken to the lady's character have said that she's a mild-mannered, quiet, seemingly, you know, harmless human being. But she's admitted to the crime, you know, and she's a Gen Z.
Right.
So the question the parent is probably asking is, where did they go wrong? What could they have done different? How could they have seen those signs with a child who is supposedly harmless? What do you think would have caused this type of thing to happen? Because it could happen to any of us.
You know, that's a question that I don't know that anybody can have one answer. There's several things that went wrong. There's obviously several things that went wrong there. And it's really unfortunate, you know. Unfortunate for the person who lost his life, unfortunate for his family and what they're having to deal with, and unfortunate for her as well, because, I mean, I'm sure she has to be looking and thinking, what happened? How did she get here? And so there's a lot of things to unpack there, right? And without knowing the story any closer, I'm very careful to speculate, but something somewhere went wrong. From the minute she met somebody who was older and she was having a relationship with this person, there was already something there, right? How did that even happen? How did that even happen? And then from there, how did it cascade to this? I've heard all kinds of rumors, you know. I've heard about, you know, substance abuse. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes.
But how did the parents not see any signs? Because when you talk about intentionality in parenting of Gen Zs and Alphas, the assumption is that part of that intentionality is to be able to see the unspoken signs.
Right.
But how is it that the
miss
signs, yes, how do you miss that big of a thing?
Right. But not a lot of parents, for example, don't even know how to pick up the signs of drug abuse, though.
I
So you
see.
can be as intentional as you want. If there's certain things that the child wants to hide from a parent, the child will hide it from the parent.
So how do you then pick up on those
You
signs?
just, once again, I will be honest, a lot of it is prayer. That's the truth.
Wow.
But a lot of it also is just talking regularly, paying attention as much as you can. But you can't know everything. And let's also be fair to know that this is a very, very, very extreme case. Right? This is
I
very,
see.
very extreme.
I
So
see.
while it's shocking, it's not something we hear every day. You know, and I keep saying part of why I'm very careful to discuss it, there's a lot behind the scenes that I believe we don't know. I think there's a lot behind the scenes we don't know, and it's very easy to, I think, from another perspective, look and point fingers and say, how could they not have known? They should have known. We really don't know what happened. We really don't know what happened.
Fair
so,
enough.
you know,
Fair enough.
but I do think the lesson when we hear unfortunate news is for every parent to just look back into their toolkit and say, all right, what do I need to modify? What's
see.
working? What's not working?
I see.
Can I really say I truly know my child? And if you find yourself not being sure, even when you think you're sure, try and figure out a way to do an audit, parenting audit.
Parenting audit. I see what you mean. So okay, so my final question is this. Parenting sometimes, you know, it's not something you're taught in school, but I personally think that it should be. I believe that it's something that you should teach in school. So if you were responsible for setting the curriculum for this school, what 3 parenting principles would you recommend for raising Gen Z and Gen Alpha?
Right. Well, that's a great question. And the first thing would be to understand your parenting style,
Okay.
understand your child's love language.
Understand your parenting style, one. Understand your child's love language.
And thirdly, have a parenting vision board, which means that you're not raising a child, you're raising an adult. So if you're raising an adult, you need to, you know, we all know what vision boards are. A lot of
Yes.
us do vision boards for our life, six-pack,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
30 billion in the account. But a vision board that's parenting specific per child. I'm seeing Body as a 30-year-old gentleman who has this set of values, who's a well-rounded, fill in the blanks for what you want as a parent, then you walk backwards.
I see.
You walk backwards and say, all right, how do we start to build those building blocks
I see.
to raise an adult? Because we're not raising children, we're raising adults. Your parenting job is done when an adult is submitted to the world.
I see.
That's when your parenting job is done.
I see.
Right? So if you then walk backwards, so I would say those are the 3 tenets, other which I would break it down. And then what connects them all is the fact that we're in a digital age. But our children need the same thing. They need love, they need nurture, they need parents who understand them, they need parents whose parenting style matches what the child needs. You can have 5 children or 2 children and they're each different. The way you parent the first one will not work for the second one. So you cannot just copy and paste. You can't copy and paste. So I think if you sit down intentionally, if that's something you take away from today, and say, how do I delve into those 3 areas specifically, and start to put it together intentionally. You know, there are 3 schools we don't go to, and there are 3 schools that I believe a lot of us need. Marriage school, parenting school, and wealth creation school.
Wow.
Very few people are taught about true wealth creation. So you stumble into, you get a job, and then you're like, wow, ends never meet. And so it's always a cycle. No matter what you're earning, you're always going to want more. So those would be my 3 main areas that I would
Know
build
your
a curriculum
parenting
about.
style, one. Know your child's love language. Have a vision board for the adults you're raising, and then work backwards. Awesome, awesome. This has been short but very, very insightful. I don't have kids yet, but I've been taking notes because I want to be an intentional parent. So thank you so much for this. Thank you so much, Yeti. And we've come to the end of this. And I'm just so thankful. I'm just so thankful. One of the things that I had said to you earlier was when I made an SOS call out for guests for this topic, 5 people recommended you. And that goes to your level of excellence and how impactful you are. So I'm really thankful that I got to interview you today.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
You too.
Thank you. After this, Helen, John, and myself will be wrapping up the show. So stay tuned.
Hello, school. Do you think you have the next Telsa's Elon Musk in your school? Then register your best 20 Year 9 students for a chance to win over 3 million naira and other exciting prizes in the Quick Learning Mathematics Contest Nigeria. Be part of history as Quick Learning Mathematics Contest Nigeria introduces CBT examination method, allowing thousands of students compete from their comfort zones, be it at home, school, cafe, wherever. All registered students will be given free weekend examination preparatory lessons at www.mathematics.quicklearning.africa by award-winning maths experts ahead of the qualifying exams scheduled to hold between Thursday, July 1st and Sunday, July 4th, 2021. Quick Learning Mathematics Contest Nigeria is powered by Quick Learning. E-learning at your place, pace, and price.
My true story, my brown skin.
My brown skin, my power.
My brown skin, my heritage.
My brown skin, my legacy.
My brown skin, my evolution.
Brown skin, don't crack.
Brown skin is you.
My sexy, my brown skin.
Awesome, like she would say. Awesome, awesome. It's still Today with John and Helen, and today's show has been all about parenting in the 21st century, because we almost try to get it right. So much is going wrong, and we almost find that balance and raise children who have passion, to become mothers and fathers, also who raise human beings, like I said before. Guys, it's been awesome. Our first guest, BC Bitayo, gave us 5 P's, which were presence, partnership, provision, prayer, and protection. And your guest just nailed it, bringing us down to raising children in the Generation X or Z children.
Generation Z
children.
And Generation Alpha.
So altogether, we've looked at analog parenting and digital parenting.
Yes.
And John, would your nugget?
Yes, and I have my nugget.
Close to that today.
Wait for it.
Okay.
So my nugget for today is this. Every good speech is like a pencil. Every good speech should have a point. So, and that's because most times we don't organize our thought process, very well before facing the audience. You have to always ask yourself, at the end of this, what is that one thing that I want the audience to go away with? Yeah. So that is that one point, which is like the pencil. Yeah. So always remember the pencil when you're making your speech or
John,
presentation.
I like these your nuggets. I love them.
So
it's
every speech is like a pencil.
It's like a pencil.
Every speech.
That's going to be easy to remember. So that's the one point I've taken
that's the
away
one
now.
point you've taken away. So that's it. That's my nugget for today.
Okay.
So
And I'm interested in. I'm very excited about it because it just embodies communication.
Yes.
Proper communication, because you must have delivered well for somebody to be able to take that one pencil, Abi.
Yes.
Abi.
that
Yes,
one point.
That
That
one
one
point. But that means you have to make sure you sharpen your pencil,
Oh yes.
which also goes to
It can't be a
practice,
blunt
practice,
pencil.
practice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Preparation.
Yes.
Yeah,
You got
preparation.
it. You got it.
Yes,
Farah, you
yes,
got
definitely.
it. Yes.
So
spot
next
on.
week.
Next week, we are going to be looking at everyday pressures. So all the things that cause us pressure in the current world we live in today, particularly in this our very stressful city of Lagos and Nigeria at large. So next week,
And
everyday
parenting is one
pressure.
of those pressures. Yeah, raising money, protecting the children, providing for them.
There are plenty pressures.
Jesus.
Plenty.
All right. And so today has been good.
It has been. It has been.
I've enjoyed it.
I have
But
to.
before we go, say a big thank you to Pharaoh
What did Pharaoh do?
for sitting in so well.
And for me.
And
Too
for
far
me.
away. I can have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
But I'm so happy you're back.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be back too.
Your chair
I'm glad
missed
to be
you.
alive. My chair missed me. Okay, my chair, I'm back.
So welcome back.
All right, let's do it again next week. You know, we can't do this without you. We'll be back same time next week on the show. Today with John and Helen. I'm Helen Odele.
Pharaoh Owo Tomo.
John Senaya. See you.
See you next week.
Bye for now.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect am. If you no talk, dem go beat you. Na 2,500 I dey pay.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation, as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.